Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Decatur, just off the campus of Millikin in an outdoor food court. And you might be surprised to know that Millikin's Center for Entrepreneurship has found a storefront here at the food court that houses antique printing machines. You got to see them. Stephen Freck, it's an interesting concept that you're an English teacher at Millikin, that you would have always been, most of your literary life, been interested in the printing process, that you would bring a particular thought process to your students and actually open up a storefront where you got a real, honest to goodness printing operation going on.
Yeah, we haven't been here for very long, and I'm really excited to be here. I mean, for the most part, I feel very grateful to have this opportunity. But the printing process itself that I started with students back in 2008 was a great pleasure to bring that part of the process, not just printing, but also the engagement with literary community to the students. You know, I think students in literature classes are very used to reading textbooks, reading work by people, some of whom are long deceased. And so the opportunity in running a small literary press is to engage living writers, to think about work and actually make the selection of work in a living literary community. So I'm very excited about that.
Look around this place. Blue Satellite Press is the storefront name of the... Look around this place. It looks like maybe the back room, no, it's not inky yet, but once it gets all linked up, it's going to look like the back room of a printing operation.
It will, yeah.
It's terrific. And we're going to see how these old printing presses work. These are called broadside presses, I think is what you call them.
Well, these are actually letter presses. A broadside is a particular print. It's more commonly known as a poster. But these presses are letter presses, and they are a very specific kind of letter press. These machines are called platen presses.
Okay, and we'll get to see them work.
We will.
Okay, and actually one of your students is here too, and she's going to help us through the process as well. Okay, these date back from like 1909, so these are the real deal. These are when they were pumping them out one at a time, right?
They are, and it's one of the reasons why letterpress has gone out of commercial use, is that it's a slower printing process than we have now. There's really no way to do letterpress printing, even with more recent machines, than to pump them out one at a time. And quite frankly, you know, with letterpress printing, you also have to print the colors in different passes as well. You can't do multiple colors in the same pass. So,
well, that's really a good intro to what we're going to do here, because you have already selected this blue ink.
Yes.
You're running off a number of brochures, and one of the colors is blue and one is yellow.
Yeah.
So you've already run the yellow, but now you're going to run the blue for us.
We are. Actually, we mix this color to match in some way with the yellow that we'd already printed. So we won't witness the mixing. So we missed that messy part of that one.
We can use our imagination on how you'd come up with the color.
Yeah. And so
what is this glass plate called?
This is just a glass plate. This is a smaller one that we have, so we use this as a transfer glass, you know, where we move from wherever our inking station is back to the presses.
Now, do you need to spread that all around, or will that get spread through the process?
The machine will do it itself.
Okay.
As I said, if we were mixing this right now, had you been here yesterday when we were mixing
when you were making the color,
you would have seen ink all over the place.
I'm kind of glad I wasn't.
Hands, clothing, but really for now, since it's already inked, mixed rather, all we need is a globule to transfer over to the press.
And what's going on here?
This is the lockup, or the form, and so what you're looking at here is a metal frame. It's called a chase. This large metal frame here is called a chase. And what's locked up is the text that we're going to print. Now, letterpress printing really dates back to Gutenberg. This is Gutenberg technology, movable type.
Wow, 1500s.
Yeah, movable type. And so this was, if I can loosen it for you, this is all...
Oh, each one is an individual letter. And it's upside down and backwards, blue satellite, press, and
Studio.
Studio, okay. So each, and of course this is an uppercase, and this is lowercase, so each one gets locked into place.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it gets locked into, again, what I called a chase, this metal frame. And what creates the tension to lock it in place are called coins. Now, the older versions of these, which these are essentially function as wedges, exerting pressure in opposite directions.
Is that what you just put in there, that wedge? Okay,
These,
all right.
these two wedges. And then we tighten the coins.
Those back up again.
We tighten the coins.
It's a very specific tool for that too, isn't it?
Yep, this is called a key. And the key is a match for the coins. So different manufacturers might have different teeth on their coins, different sizes. So the key is a match to the coins. And then what happens is, if I've done this properly, is that you're able to lift the chase, and all of those loose pieces, all of those loose letters hold in place.
And it looks like they have. It looks like you've done it correctly.
Yes.
Now, this will be, of course, be inserted into the press.
Yes.
And the ink will go on the surface.
Correct.
And this is what we're going to print out. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Well, let's get that started.
Yeah, let's start with the ink.
Okay.
Because we want to let the press distribute the ink. And I'm going to let Sophia step in here and
One of your students.
do that. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure how much we're going to need right now, so.
The ink goes right on that disc.
Right on the disc.
I'll be
Yeah,
darned.
it's called an ink disc, and these are our two rollers, and Sophia's going to set this press in motion. You can see the ink disc and the rollers there distributing the ink. And she'll do this until what we have is a very smooth, even blue color on that disc.
And you can do one at a time, one color at a time.
Yes.
And when you're finished with this deep blue color that you're using, then you have some kind of a solution that cleans that completely off there for get ready for the next color.
Yes, we have a solution, but the labor is still elbow grease.
Okay, yeah. But everything's manual, including the
Yes.
cleaning the
Yeah.
plate.
Yeah.
And I'm interested too. See, the center of this disc moves in relation to the outside of the disc. What is
Yes.
that doing?
Well, some discs are solid and they move in one direction. This one, this particular press, has an ink disc with a center disc that rotates in one direction and the outer disc rotates in another.
That just helps it move it around?
It does. This sort of dual action actually facilitates the distribution of the ink.
And I noticed Sophie is having to do this with a treadle, so nothing was automated, everything was manual. She has to keep pumping that, right?
She does, yes. It will sort of cycle through once or twice if she were to stop. The wheel and the weight of the wheel creates some energy and motion. But for the most part, for the purpose of printing, or in this case, distributing the ink, you have to keep pumping.
Now, when you determine that that ink has been distributed, what do you do next?
The next thing that happens is we move the form over, the text that we're going to print.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it time?
I think it's about time.
Okay, we'll bring that over.
Sure.
Sophia, you could just keep pumping there, I guess, is the ticket. No, she quit. Okay, that's all right. She figures that the ink's mixed well enough. So, and this is the chase, which you called the chase, okay? And we saw how you locked those figures into place.
Yep. Sophia, this went in this way, correct?
I see, okay.
You lower the rollers just a little.
Lower the roller so you can tuck that into place.
And this
that
locks it in
also
place.
locks in, okay.
And we should be ready to print. I'm going to wipe off my hands here.
Okay. And what we're going to do is we've printed some of these brochures up with the yellow color. We're going to add the blue color now. Okay.
Yeah. We decided, we were thinking about shops and what typical shops have. Many of them have either a sign, some of them are neon these days, that announce that they're open. And so we thought that would be an appropriate first print in our space. You're actually witnessing the first print.
This is
we're
the grand
producing,
opening,
the grand opening.
Terrific.
Of Blue Satellite Press and
We
Studios.
like to be on top of things.
Yeah. We're hoping to have some extras here to distribute for people, but That's what we're doing, an open sign. So again, what you're going to see now is the rollers, which have the ink on them already, they're going to place just the smallest deposit of ink on the face of that text. And so one of the advantages of this kind of press over another kind of press is that the inking is automated. These Chandler and Price machines were designed as finish quality presses.
In earlier days, you would have, after each sheet, would have to go back over and manually ink those letters.
Yes, in the very olden days, they used to work on flat, horizontal beds or printing presses, and they would have used a leather, I guess a leather sack of some sort that they would have simply dabbed the ink on.
Okay, now it's
We're going
time
to pull
for
a print here and make sure that
first one to
from
see if we got
yesterday
the-
to today we're in the same.
And this will tell you whether you have it inked properly, whether you have enough ink on on your fonts there.
There we go.
Wow, hold that still for us for just a moment. That's a nice job. Look how clean that is.
We are, in fact, slightly out of alignment.
Looks pretty good to me.
We are slightly out of. I don't
It's
know why
nothing that can't
happened.
be fixed, right?
Nothing that can't be fixed,
Okay.
but something that will require some fixing. I'm going to pull one more
Okay.
and see if that print was an oddity. And it was.
That one's better, huh?
Yep. See the alignment?
Congratulations. Now, Stephen, this monster is very much like the one we just saw working.
Yes.
But you can see it's a lot bigger.
It is considerably larger. The smaller press that we were just operating is an 8x12, and so it would have been used for smaller forms, things like business cards and postcards, envelopes, letterhead, those kinds of things.
In fact, this would be about the biggest thing you could produce on that. wouldn't it?
Almost the whole sheet, yes.
Yeah.
But you could imagine that this election notice was printed on a press of that size. Yes.
Right. And this comes from Campsville, Calhoun County, 1887.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was a broadside press.
Broadsides have been around for a
Wow.
very long time.
Neat.
Yeah.
This machine that we're looking at here is 1909.
Yes.
And both of these were built by the same company or around 1909,
Yes,
I guess.
yeah, they're both made by Chandler and Price out of Cleveland. They were both manufactured, as I can gather from the serial numbers on them, in 1909, which is interesting that they're now housed in the same print shop, because I acquired them from different places and at different times.
Yeah.
So it's just a coincidence that they were both
We're going to talk
manufactured in
about the
1909.
acquiring process of this big one a little bit later on, but first, we've got it inked up.
We do.
You can see the disc up there. It looks green, but it's actually yellow ink. And we're going to see how this thing works. The caveat is you haven't used this much, so it's a mystery to you too, isn't
Yes,
it?
I have spent weeks or months this summer trying to refurbish this press. It had been sitting idle for decades in a print shop here locally. I acquired it in May or June, and I spent quite a few hours cleaning it up, greasing it up, making it operational. I had to fabricate a foot treadle so we could operate it with something other than a motor.
Would it have had a treadle originally? Would it have had
You know, what I've been able to gather online is that there's sort of a mixed sense of that. This machine was so big that the general assumption is that they were motorized. Most of them were motorized. They were still manufactured, all of them, even those motorized, with the crook in the crankshaft. And so you could then, as I have done,
make a treadle.
attach a treadle
Yeah, okay.
and operate it that way.
Okay, well, let's see how it works.
Sure. The mechanism is essentially the same as the other press. It's simply much, much larger than the other press.
Okay, this is where the treadle comes in. You'll
Yep.
start pumping that treadle. That keeps the wheel going.
Yep.
That keeps the rollers going up and down, right?
Yes.
Okay, and that spreads. Okay, the
Yeah.
rollers pick up the ink.
Yes.
They come down, they rub up against the letters. They ink the letters, and then the paper presses up against the letters, and you've got your impression.
This style of press is called a platen press. It was patented in about 1850 by a man named Golding. Chandler and Price The company that manufactured this particular press started in about the late 1870s maybe. And they set about making very durable presses. One of the reasons, no doubt, that not only Chandler and Price's like these are still around, but that very soon after Chandler and Price started manufacturing, that a lot of the other smaller press manufacturers went out of business. They were simply too good. They were that good. And the way that the platen press works is it functions very much like a clamshell, opening and closing like a clamshell. The rollers here pick up the ink on the ink disc as you described. They ink up the form, and while the press is open like this, you're putting in a new blank sheet and pulling out the old one. Or actually the reverse of that.
All right. Can we demonstrate that?
We will try our best.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so you've already got it sized. Okay. Uh-oh.
We will let that
Yeah, trial and
go.
error. Trial and error.
Yep. One of the things that these presses had to manage the problem that you just saw, I actually took it off because it was it needs some more refurbishing, is a bar that would actually hold the paper in place up against the platen when the print came out. And so basically what happens in a situation like that is that there's so much surface area with sticky ink on it that the...
Well, you had these little clamps here that were supposed to hold it down. Can we try again? Do you think if we tried again, would we have any
Probably.
success?
There was a lot of ink on the form because we were talking. So let's cycle it through.
See if we can get an impression this time.
Sheet.
It was a messy job, wasn't it, being a printer?
It was a very messy job. All right, let's cycle this through. A little less ink on it and see what happens.
Now, if it just won't stick to the letters, then we'll be okay. Okay, Sophia's got it.
There we go.
All right. Okay, you can see where it's a little light in some places.
And that essentially is caused by the age of the wood type. You know,
the wood type, which is the letters
the
that
letters
we see.
themselves.
Now they're in what we called a chase earlier, right? And they have been like you. I don't know how you fasten it, but you can see where the top where that's fastened to that plate.
Coins again.
Okay, and you would choose which letters you want to use.
But yes,
okay,
it's basically
right,
the same thing. That with tension, the letters are held in place. And so what you're seeing here is basically a very, very old wood type, and the printer would simply go in and, in printing an actual finished product, would have to raise some of these lower letters up individually.
But now here's an example. Now we showed the example of what you could use with the smaller printer, but I've got some other examples that you got from Western Illinois University. These are broadside presses, or I guess that's the right word.
These are broadsides.
Broadsides. Yeah. This is from 1881. And this was in, I'm not sure what county it was. This is another size, the same size. This is 1853. This was from Fulton County, Illinois, a sale of real estate. And look at the font or the text. Look how fancy it is.
Yeah,
1890
1890
from McDonough County. Yeah. So this was typical. I mean, this was typical what you would print from presses like this.
Yes, and even larger. You could print larger sheets on this press. The chase size is 14.5 by 22. Yeah. So you could do tabloid-sized newspapers, magazines on this.
And poetry. Don't forget poetry.
And poetry.
You're going to be doing poetry.
Yes. Yeah. We've got some samples of some poetry broadsides to share with you too.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Sophia, did you think that when you signed up for an English class that you'd end up working in a print shop?
Not exactly, no. I knew some people that had taken the class before, so I sort of knew what I was getting into, although not quite the extent of it.
Well, you must like it.
I do.
Because you're here today. You don't have to be here today. You just came in to help us shoot this program.
Yeah.
So you must kind of like diddling around with these machines.
I do. In fact, this is the third semester I'm taking this class for credit.
Right?
Yes, and I've sort of been in and out in some of the in-between semesters as well, so I really do like being involved in the process.
We've used the term broadside numerous times in this program, and that's the product that you get from using these presses. And the fact is, we've just shown like rudimentary kinds of stuff that it prints, because that's the way you demonstrate to the audience how they work. But they do some pretty sophisticated work too. I mean, one of the things that you do here in the Blue Satellite is you print these various color broadsides, and particularly poetry, because that's what you're sort of about, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. We do emphasize on the poetry.
Yeah, I really like this one. I like the shape of it and the way you cut it to size like this, and the way that you chose the shape and size for the poem itself.
Yes.
And you, the students, help choose these poems that you're going to print, don't you?
We do, yeah. We solicit work from poets we admire, and if they agree and they say, yes, I would love to be a part of this, we get their work. Usually they send us multiple poems and we'll choose one.
Clint Margrave sent this, and I'm not where he's from, but I'm going to ask you to read that because it's just really sweet.
String theory. When I first learned to play guitar, I never bothered tuning because I couldn't hear the difference between a guitar in tune and a guitar out of tune, which is just about the difference between everything.
I wonder if he's still playing guitar.
I don't know.
These are wonderful examples of what, now these aren't finished products, these are all sort of like demos, aren't they? But they do show you what you and the machines are capable of doing.
Yes. They're
Different shapes, different colors. It's not just like reading a newspaper. I mean, you can do a lot with these machines.
And we do.
And they're very old. How do you like working with these 1909 equipment?
I like it because it's very physical. It's not, I could do all this on a computer, but I could just sit in a chair and sort of click and move my fingers only, and it's not quite as satisfying for me. Something about the physicality of the process.
Well, and you actually have to pick out the letters too, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you pick out each letter, so it makes you think very carefully about what you're doing.
It does. We pick out absolutely everything from the size and the color and the texture of the paper, the different colors we use, the different fonts, absolutely everything, even the way this guitar shape or any of these shapes were all cut out. They're all cut out in very particular ways, and yeah, we choose all of that.
So and you're a poet, when you go to write a poem, all of this sort of works on you, doesn't it? Because you have to pay attention to detail, even in the writing.
It does, and it definitely reinforces the concept that writing is a process, writing is an evolving process. If I know I write a lot of prose poems which don't have your typical lines, and so if I know that I'm going to write a poem that's going to be printed on a broadside, maybe I won't do a prose poem, maybe I will do something with a line structure, something that we're more used to, that will show up in print, because that's one of the limitations on us. We have the form of a poem, we're not going to change that, that's their poem. So it definitely makes you very aware of limits and process and what those are on you.
Yeah. Sophia, thanks a lot for visiting with us.
Thank you.
Stephen, while we've got Sophia working hard over there, producing those broadsides, there comes a time when you produce enough of this stuff, and pretty soon you have to cut it to size, right?
Yes.
Well, we've heard the date 1909 a lot today, because that's when those presses were made, but this was also patented in 1909, and this is a paper cutter, and it's also Chandler, isn't it?
Yes, made by the same company. It was patented in 1909. I believe the serial number, I'd have to check my figures again, it places it sometime in the 1920s.
It's remarkable, and boy, did it work well, didn't it? And still does.
It still does. As I said, Chandler and Price set their sort of corporate and manufacturing identity to sturdy, durable machines, and this one is proving it.
You had all kinds of warning labels on this before we asked them to remove you, because in fact, basically what they said was, don't put your fingers near this thing because it'll cut them off. It's very sharp.
Yeah, the blade on this is razor sharp, and in addition to it being sharp, it has a lot of weight behind it. And so, heaven forbid that this were to slip with someone's fingers or hands in the way, because fingers and hands won't slow the blade down.
Nowadays paper cutters, they come with all kind of guards to keep you from using, or allowing you the ability to get your fingers in there, but that wasn't the way in the day, was it?
That was not the case with this machine. Chandler and Price did, as the expectations were raised, begin to include those kinds of safety mechanisms on their machines, but this one is much earlier than that, and I have not to date let anyone other than myself operate this.
You got a whole stack of chipboard because you wanted to show that this will cut something really firm.
Yes.
And so let's see how it works.
This is your gauge. You can see the ruler.
Let's see that wheel.
on the
Let's see you
bed.
turning that wheel. Okay, there you. Okay.
And what this wheel does is it controls the guide in the back, which allows us to measure the distance to the blade.
Okay.
So I'm going to set it at 5.5 inches. This chipboard, I believe, is 11 inches. So we're basically going to cut this stack in half. Again, you can see fingers going very near.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, you don't want to
the
get too
blade.
close to that.
And then we lock it down. This holds the stack in place. It allows you to pinch it and make sure that every sheet in the stack is cut and that you don't have any kind of bending or torquing.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and so we are going to
I'm going to get out of the way here
cut
and
right
let you.
through.
That was pretty easy, wasn't it?
It was easy. There you go.
Now, see, when I use a paper cutter with numerous sheets, I always end up at an angle.
Yes.
But that's what this thing
That's
prevents,
what this
huh?
vise does. Is it locks it all in place, and so you get a finished square edge.
Now, this, I didn't even know these existed. I knew there were paper cutters back then, but I didn't know that there were perforators. And like, for instance, if you tear a check out of a book, or if you want to separate tickets, you keep in mind all those little holes that make it possible to tear a piece of paper in half had to be created by something, right?
Yes, yeah. There's a whole lot in our basic, day-to-day functioning lives that required the development of machinery like this, and perforation was one of them. We don't use them anymore, but the old stamps you had to actually lick. Those would have come in sheets, and a machine like this would have perforated to allow us to separate those stamps from the sheet. I don't know very much about this, either this machine or about the company. Obviously, there it's emblazoned with Chicago, Illinois.
Yeah.
I did find 2 records of patent by the Latham Machinery Company for this measuring mechanism up front, and a removable head on the perforator. Because it's so old and because it was designed for heavy-duty work, is also a very heavy cast iron and steel machine.
You either have a very strong back or you know the right people, because you really moved some heavyweight stuff in here.
I did, and I did move, once it was in the shop, I did move this by myself. It took some forethought, a car jack, and some furniture carts.
Stephen, thank you so much for sharing all this with us. This is
It's been great
terrific.
to have you here.
And if you're wondering why this shop is here in a commercial center, keep in mind that Blue Satellite Press is part of Millikin's Center for Entrepreneurship. And not only do they print these things for themselves and their students, they print posters, as you can see behind me, and they also offer certain jobs to nonprofits in Decatur, like the American Legion, which they created this for a while ago. With another Illinois story in Decatur, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send $19.95 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.